Well, looks like white's got the advantage. It's white's move, and it's one move to checkmate. Gosh, this is some Game of Thrones stuff here, Eric. Globalism, chessboards, QAnon, viruses, pandemics, paranoia. Everybody's freaking out. Let's get something solid.
You know, really interesting as we're trying to run this game, staring at this side, trying to protect that king, you see the world a certain way. You've got these defensive castles, but from this other side over here, it's a whole different perspective.
Well, that was my side.
Yeah, I know. I let you pin me like that. So
Yeah,
that
I know. Just
this,
expedite the film. Yeah,
expedite
I understand.
But you know, it's a whole different perspective. This game of chess is just such an incredibly fascinating game. But what's really going on? You know, the interesting thing is that we don't really know who's the good guys and who the bad guys are. It all depends on your perspective, and you know, if it was black's move, in this case the dark brown.
Well, it's not.
Well, if it was his move, he still can't go anywhere because even that would be in check. But we were.
Oh no,
playing this
you
game.
had some good moves if
But
it were your move.
Well, this guy's pinned even which case, but you know, we're saying if it was the white move, the white could move anywhere, but he's already in. He's not in check yet, but one move and it's all over. He can't. He's couldn't move there because he wouldn't be in check. He'd have to be there. He can't move anywhere. The point is, we're trying to figure out what our next move is with the quarantine and the stuff we hear about. Is COVID-19? Is it a virus? Is it a result of 5G? You know, there's people saying that it's not a virus at all. It's actually 5G is stirring up the cells. Your body's cells' defensive mechanism kicks out viruses as an excretion, which shows up as like you're sick, and that's not, it's like, I don't know who to believe. You know, the interesting thing about this chess game and the existing circumstances, we've got the wrong game. It has nothing to do with this. This is nothing about what we're facing.
I knew it'd come to
The whole
this.
thing is a total scam. And what we have is a whole different game, you see? It's like we aren't playing with those pieces that they're giving us to think that we need to figure out how to play with. And, gee, how do I...
Wait, you got an Aleph, Bet, Gimel? Hey, Bob,
I've got
you knew?
22 rocks
Whoa!
that I'm going to now organize in some way, and it's like, well, what do I do with this? Do I do the round ones next to... What am I... What's the best way to do this? Is it maybe I should put the square ones next to the round ones, or maybe I can stand these guys up, and it's a different game. It's not the game they're telling us to look at. It's a whole different game. What has this got to do with rocks? Well, you know, the interesting thing is, this is Pesach of 2020. And 3,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago, in the days of Moshe, there was an exodus out of Egypt. But it wasn't called Egypt back then. It's Mitzrayim. Mem, Zadi, Resh, Yod, Mem. And the word Zadi, Resh is rock. And the word, the suffix of Yod, Mem means rocks. And Mem is a place of rocks. So literally the word Egypt is a place of rocks, or a game of rocks. But it's not just rocks. They were Zadi Resh is like between a rock and a hard place, and you're just squeezed right down in there where you can't move. It's kind of like you need supplies, but you can't buy supplies. But maybe the suppliers will give you the supplies anyway. No, they're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to open their stores. They're not allowed to have you go there and even stand in line. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Everybody's squeezed and it's between these rocks. Whoa, hey, wait a minute.
Just quit breathing.
Wear a mask, only the mask don't even work. It's not about the mask because it's not about the virus. Oh, but maybe it is, but maybe it's not. What do we do? Oh, we can't go up, we can't go down, we got to go left or right. It's being squeezed between a rock and a hard place. It's a game of rocks, that's what they've got. Wait a minute, where's the sanity? Where's the sanity? Interesting thing, the word shafah, shin pei he, is the word for lip, language, or tongue, and it means to cure from lunacy, to restore to health, to bring the composure of sanity to an otherwise insane condition. And the word shafah is always used in connection to the shafah kadosh, which is the sacred kadosh lip, language, tongue, speaking of the Hebrew language. My wife Karen happened to notice that whenever the other languages of the nations are mentioned, it's always lashon. And lashon is where you've got opposing forces, like these different militaries. You know, there's an interesting thing about the chessboard setup, is you've got these guys out front. They call them pawns, but then you've got these, what they call knights, horses. And then you've got what they call bishops and castles, and then you've got the royalty, which is actually the king and the queen. And then there's on the other side. But what are we looking at here? We've got the royals, the Merovingian order, those who think they're the genetic posterity of Jesus Christ married to Mary Magdalene. The Merovingian blue bloods, the royals, oh yeah, they're special. And then you've got the church, the bishop, right at their right hand to run the show. And then you've got the military, the knights. And then you've got the institutions, the rook, the castle, which might be courts of law, it could be education, could be medical. The institutions that they run, are the pawns the peasants? My dad had a chessboard and the pawns had shields. Well, the word shield bearer is actually esquire. The esquires are the lawyers, the attorneys. So the attorneys are the front men conducting battle with the other side, trying to stage what? To take over the world? Chess is an interesting game. It was developed by the Persians. But you know, like I said, it has nothing to do with that game. In Isaiah 46, there's an interesting two verses, verses 10 and 11. And there's a word that's used in verse 11 that's Yod, Zadi, Resh, Tav, Yod. Well, in Hebrew, when you've got a word with a Tav, sometimes that's the short form of Vav Tav, which is a plural. So you could say this word looks like it's the word rocks. Only it's Yod, Zadi, Resh, Tav, Yod. So the Yod suffix means my, so it's like my rocks. And the Yod prefix means he will. So that's third person, and the suffix is first person. What's going on there? He will rock me. He rocks my what? Well, in English, in American, we use the word rocks. Like, hey man, you rock. You're doing it. You're making it happen. Making what happen? We're supposed to be engaged in a game of rocks? We've never been told that. The game of chess is supposed to be one of the greatest games in the world, but what's going on? Well, there's an interesting thing. Let's just look at this word, Yod, Zadi, Resh, Tav, Yod. The word Mitzrayim, Zar, Zadi, Resh, is the common link. Mitzrayim has the Zadi, Resh, and this Yitzarati has Zadi, Resh. But Zadi, Resh is where you get the word Caesar, Kaiser, the Tsar, like the Tsar of Russia. Those who are strong and powerful and squeeze you between a rock and a hard place to dominate you like the pieces on the chessboard. It's a picture of the Straits of Gibraltar out there in the Mediterranean between Africa and Spain, where the whole Mediterranean Sea constricts down to one little narrow passage like Tierra del Fuego down at the southern end tip of South America. There's an interesting thing in the book of Daniel, chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had a dream. And if you read the story, it's really interesting. He woke up, he didn't know what the dream was. He called his wise men, sages, seers, the Chaldean, the occult masters, maestros of vision. And he says, tell me the dream and what it means. If you guys are worth anything, you're shaman, you're witch doctors, you're medicine men, if you are really worth your salt, as they say, tell me the dream and what it means. I said, look, nobody can do that. You tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. Is that not the way it works? I'm going to kill you off if you don't do your job and tell me. Well, Daniel appealed to heaven, to El Elyon, the Most High. And he got the answer. He got the answer of what the dream was and what it meant. And there he saw that Nebuchadnezzar had seen a statue, head of gold, arms of silver, midsection made out of bronze, legs of iron, feet of iron mixed with clay. And he said, you, O king, are this head of gold. You're the first and greatest preeminent kingdom on the face of the earth of this reckoning, this regard. And after you will come another, turned out to be like this arms, Media Persia, which speaks of military and economics. And then the midsection of bronze, where the guts are, was speaking of Greece, that was going to come next with Alexander the Great, the Macedonian. And then out of that came Rome, these two legs of iron. And then out of that comes these feet, iron mixed with clay. The toes that are separate, but they're mixed, but they're together. And it's like, what's this saying? And it's like, well, where are we today? We might be at that place of the toes, because democracy is people that are together but not together. 6 feet apart, social distancing, just like the toes. I mean, if there was ever a time to speak of democracy and social distancing looking like the toes, and it's not that we're another kingdom other than Rome, but where we are now is an amalgamation of all these kingdoms. Babylon, what came out of Babylon? The numbering system, or they had a base 60, not a base 10, but this intelligentsia came from Babylon. One of the greatest wonders of the ancient world was the hanging gardens of Babylon. The wall, I believe it was 60 feet wide and 200 feet tall, went all the way around the city of Babylon, was impenetrable. Medes and the Persians dammed up the Euphrates River, diverted it, and came in under the wall and took it over in one night, as it says later on in Daniel. The time when the handwriting on the wall, a hand showed up and wrote Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin. Nobody could read it. Daniel could read it. I think it was probably written in Paleo-Hebrew. Daniel could read it because it's Paleo-Hebrew. And the letters mean something. You could read those words. Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin. You've been weighed, measured, found wanting. This day, this night, your kingdom is taken from you. Medes and the Persians would come in and divide it up. And it's like, how could such a thing be? Because Yahweh, our Elohim, is in charge. He's conducting this train, as it were. Why am I dressed up in this conductor's outfit? We'll get to that in a minute. It's the last word of Isaiah 46:11. Locomotive. You see, everything's tied together. It's not like a game of chess where you've got these two sides fighting to take over the world. Yahuwah has got everything staged. It's almost like a game of dominoes. Everything is hooked together, link by link. And we've got 22 rocks here. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin. 7. Het, Tet, Yod. Kaf, Lamed. Mem, Nun. Samech, Ayin, Pei, Zadi. Kuf. Resh, Shin, Tav. You know what I just said? Hebrew alphabet. But what did I say? What do those words mean? Those letters, the names of the letters. Why is Aleph connected to Bet? Why is Bet connected to Gimel? Connected to Dalet? Connected to Hey? To Vav? To Zayin? They're not there indiscriminately. He put them there staged for a reason. The way to read the Hebrew alphabet is to see them as a continuity, like a train with the cars hooked together. So if you look back and say, well, what's Yod, Zadi, Resh, Tav, Yod? It's the place of rocks, my rocks. But it's like, wait a second. If I looked at Zadi, Resh as just the word for rock, Tav being the plural, Yod being he will, Yod suffix means my, but there's another way to read this. When Daniel interpreted that vision, it says a stone came out of nowhere, not hewn by human hands, and hit the feet and knocked the statue down. The statue turned to dust, to powder. The wind blew the powder away. Then the stone came in, formed a mountain so big it filled the whole earth, the entire planet. And it said it would not yield its sovereignty to another. That's the last kingdom. There's not going to be another kingdom. And I've heard my whole life, oh, that's Jesus coming back. Jesus is the stone. He's the rock. It's like, wait a minute. Not necessarily. Now, if he comes back right now, sometime soon, hey, that would be wonderful, great. Even so, Yavo, come Yeshua. But this is all about the study of the spelling of words. Aleph, Bet, Nun. Aleph is a prefix that means I will. Bet is to put into a form of a noun, to embody, materialize. And Nun is this action. Aleph, Bet is the word father, but it's also to have a passionate desire about something. Aleph, Bet, Hey is to yearn and, oh gosh, I can't wait for this to happen, like a father's heart. And then Bet, Nun is the word Ben, which is son. The root of the word Benjamin, son of my right hand, son of my strength. And so when Yeshua was baptized, the voice came out of heaven, this is my beloved son, That's Ben David, but this is Ben Dodi, is what he said. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Well, why is he his beloved son? Because Yeshua did the will of his Father. Yeshua said, hey, this isn't my own agenda. I'm only doing what I see my Father doing. I'm only saying what I hear my Father saying. He spoke the words of the Torah. He conducted his life as per the instructions of the Torah, and he said for us to follow him and do likewise. So actually, a good son, Ben, doing the will of the Father, Ab, and having the mind, the disposition that says, I will materialize everything he wants and put it into action, is Aleph Bet Nun. Well, that's the word stone. So it could be that this stone that hits the feet of the statue and knocks it down, is that Yeshua coming back, or is that Israel coming back? You and me doing what he said as a good son, doing the will of the heart of the Father. And you could say, well, yeah, but how's he hit the toes, hit the democratic state of the... Wait a minute. The word toes and feet and leg actually goes back to the word regal. Regal, which is where we get the word in English, regular, regulations, relegated, regal, and religious. All these words that are spelled with the consonants of RGL and RLG is feet. And we're being relegated and regulated as to our what we can do and can't do, our regulations right now, like never before. So for... Who's that at the door? People making faces at me. Anyway, the point is, for us to be told what to do, then all of a sudden, instead of doing what we're told, thinking that's the game, oh, we got to do what they say, wear the mask, stay indoors, 6 feet apart. What did Yahweh say? What did our Abba say? What's his desire? How do we make his face smile? The word chafatz is desire, chafatzi, my desire. Hepzibah, my desire is in her, or displayed in her. For us to do his desire, if somebody shows up and tries to scare you making faces like the esquires, the shield bearers, or the king and queen, or the bishop, the knight, the institutional rook, it's not those faces, it's his face. We should only be about the business of trying to make Yahuwah's face smile. I mean, when you see a little baby, what do? Make them smile. Okay, my job's done. They smiled. I'm on to other tasks. How do we make his face smile? Do what he said. What did he say? It's in Hebrew. These Hebrew words are connected together. Interesting thing, if you look at the word Zadi Resh Tav, remember this is Yod, Zadi Resh Tav Yod, it means image or imagination. Yod Zadi Resh, Yitzar, is where we get the word model, form, formula. It's rocks for building, it's manufacture, device, compose, create, founded, produce, and provide. And the word compose is basically to put something together and put out a piece of work, like a collection of these rocks, or even a collection of staging this chess game, either art, music, literature, or science, or anything like that. If you put together a composition of music, you've got a song or a symphony. If you put together a composition of art, you might get a comic book or a film or a gallery presentation. All that is what this word means. There's this concept of reading the sentence not the way we've been handed, but trying to extrapolate out of it. Let me go back to Isaiah 46:10. There's a lot of scary stories on the internet right now. There's stories about news items, there's stories about medical, about science, about celebrities in their bunkers, about people cannibalizing trafficked humans, eating babies, drinking their blood, that our celebrities and our politicians do. Is any of that true? I don't know. You hear plenty of the stories. Q will give you all kinds of information. Is it true? I don't know. Do I need to figure out whose move is it on the chessboard and who might win that game? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a different game. We have a different game to deal with. And if you look at Isaiah 46 verse 10, the first word is Mem Gimel Yod Dalet, Magid. Do you know anything about a word called Haggadah? Haggadah. This is Pesach. The Haggadah is the telling of the story. So the word mem gimel yod dalet megid is the place or the act or the one who tells a story. An announcer, a storyteller, a narrator. So this verse 10 is now tell a story. But the word gid, gimel yod dalet, comes from gimel dalet, which is where we get the word God, or fortune and luck. So it's to sweeten something good. Like in French, the word bonbon. Good. A dessert. It means choice, best. So here we are saying, hey, tell a wonderful story. Tell a good story. Can you get that on the internet? Hopefully this will be the good story. Mem resh aleph shin yod tav, where that's ma-rashit. Well, that's just like the first word of the Bible, bereshit, only this is ma-rashit. So bet as a prefix means in, or with, or on, or to embody, but mem is a very similar letter to bet. Only mem's in the middle of the alphabet, but mem is a place, or it means from. It can mean away from, like I'm not doing that anymore, or it can mean from, that's where I came from, or it can mean mem, like this is the place of incubation, like a womb, the water, a pool that a fish lives in or jumps out, or a tadpole gestates, incubates, grows until it becomes a frog and jumps out. There's this picture of a pool of water at the beginning, or the original source. So you have at the very beginning of the world when it was just a ball of water. Genesis 1:1, the first 5 verses before he said, let there be light, on the 5th verse. Or I think that's like the 3rd, 4th verse. Anyway, the point is, from the very beginning, that word rashit is also, rash is not just beginning, but it means foundation, but it also means pinnacle, summit. This is the first, the original, the greatest, and the best. Topmost. Tippy top, like somebody, Mr. Trump said, code words. The very pinnacle of the best from the very beginning. Acharit. Well, the word achar is future, next, strange, other. So here's this tell a wonderful story from at the very beginning as a foundation, achrit. But that's if you read it future. But if you read aleph as a prefix, then charit means inscription, printer's ink, engraving and carving. That's a different way to read it. So now it's like at the very beginning, I will inscribe or engrave, or, well, that sounds like Yahweh himself writing with his finger, inscribing, etching on the tables of stone, giving us the Torah, the 10 Devarim. The word charot, het resh vav tav, to put it into the plural form, means epigraph. That word epigraph comes from a Greek word, which is, we're going to bump into that in verse 11, where we get aleph pei. Well, aleph pei means translated nose, or wrath, or anger. And if all you see when you see the word aleph pei, F is anger, a nose of wrath. Is that what he's talking about? It's where we get the word epic. It also is where we get the word epistle, epigram, epidemic, which means across all the dem, like the toes. Greek word meaning people, which is why it's called democracy. So an epidemic means across all people, which is the same as a pandemic. Different verb roots. Apothecary, a place to stash or set up things to heal you, where it's like a medicine cupboard. What I'm saying is that the study of words brings Greek, Latin, Hebrew, English, French, Spanish. Those are the only languages I'm familiar with. Probably also a lot of German, Yiddish, Russian. It's Japanese. There's a bunch of Japanese and Hebrew, or Hebrew and Japanese. What I'm saying is that this study of words pulls all these things in and validates the authenticity of what these are about. But aleph pei, looking at the dictionary, you'll see that it also has to do with purpose, inclination, and impulse. Aleph pei nun, effen, is manner, way, wheel, like a bicycle. It means to do something properly on both wheels. And then it's the root of pei nun yod, which is translated face, or countenance, or in the presence of. You want to bring a smile to Yahuwah's face? That's his pene, or panim, the plural. So it's related to this word aleph pei, even though it's pei nun yod. What I'm saying is that if you start looking at the dictionary and analyzing, why are these particular letters linked together in a chronological sequence? And then what happens when you take one of these letters and puts it over here and combines it with these other letters and then add this and then put a prefix and a suffix? We're playing with rocks, but You can. It works. It works when you do this. It's not just make-believe. It's not just a fictional game like the chessboard. And it brings us back to these letters here where he says, the epigraph of freedom and liberty that I wrote from the very beginning, inscribed on tables of stone, is for the sake of the future. Well, whether you believe it or not, the future is upon us. This is the future. We are at the future, present tense. And so we can look at this word achrit and bring it right back to these words in Isaiah 46 and says, well, I could choose to believe he's talking about us here and now, presently, today. This is Pesach. This is, on some calendar, this is the first day of Chag HaMatzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the word matzot means find out how to do something. Find out how to do what? Well, they won't let us do anything. Sit in your home and do nothing. I've heard, whether it's true or not, I've heard they've told farmers not to farm, truckers not to truck, restaurants not to make food. Carpenters can't go out into somebody else's house and build. Nobody's allowed to walk on the street without a note, a permit saying, oh, hey, you have a reason to be. What? Never heard of such a thing before. Not allowed to travel? Sit in your home and doing what? There's thoughts of even words people say they're going to shut the internet down and do what? Well, record these videos and watch them. Get things to read. But the point is, read what? Great time to learn Hebrew. Just sit and learn Hebrew. Wrap your mind around what did Yahuwah say. He wrote it from the very beginning for the sake of now, when we have this imposed quarantine of no freedom. He wrote these words to give us freedom. We're not subject to their demands. Because Yahuwah, our Elohim, grants us freedom and liberty, and it's written in his words. And if you are having a mind of fear and doubt and consternation and bewilderment, read Hebrew. Learn Yahuwah's language. It was designed for sanity and freedom. It's in his words. The next word here is Vav Mem Kuf Dalet Mem. Vav Mikdam. Well, that's where you get the word from ancient antiquity. First, former, priority over. Proceed, prosper, succeed, primary, primordial. From out of the east is the way it's translated. From out of the east. What's in the east? Well, that's where the sun rises. And it's like, what came out of the east? If we think it's about the east, it's the ancient path. But what's the ancient path? The Paleo-Hebrew. The words that Yahuwah instructed us in his Torah. That's what this is talking about. Asher, lo, na, asor. So this is Asher, means who, that, which, but it's also straight, validate, and confirm. Lo, lamed aleph, means no or negative. Then nun, ayin, shin, vav, which is to say, do it, don't do it. But nun, ayin, shin, or ayin, shin, tav, means stout, think, or consider. It's like, this was never even thought of before. Nobody ever even considered this. This concept is so novel, so new to the scene, that it's like all these years, come on, for all these years, nobody's ever thought of this. Ask me, answer me. Think, have you ever in your life been told or had the suggestion put to you by any believer, any Christian, any pastor, priest, missionary, to suggest that you learn Hebrew, that you learn Paleo-Hebrew, that you study the meanings of the letters and use them to go back and look at the original writings? You can look at the Hebrew text, the Tanakh, which the Jews, thank you Yahweh for Brother Yehuda for going through what he went through to preserve us the words. But then to go back further into Paleo-Hebrew, what's known by some as Phoenician, ancient Hebrew, to look at the petroglyphs and try to say the truth is embedded there. Have you ever heard of such an insane thing? Has anybody in your life, any professor, any pastor, ever encouraged you to keep the Moedim, to regard them as Yahweh's own vestments, dressed up real nice, in an engineer's outfit? What? No, he dressed himself up in Leviticus 23. The word Moedi means to be dressed up in the best adornment, ornamentation that you can possibly put together from all your jewels, of all your greatest things. And he designed and built the Moedim and handed them to his people Israel. And my whole life, they've been scorned, loathed, abhorred, and called detestable practices of the Jews. Constantine said that. I'm not making it up. The point is, this is the great truth from the very beginning. This wonderful story that Yahweh wrote with his finger on the tables of stone, but told Moshe to sit and write in a scroll with printer's ink. And it has priority over anything ever written to conduct success. Whoever would validate or whoever would be validated, confirmed with authenticity. This was never thought about before, but Aleph Mem Resh, declare and say, Ayin Zadi Tav Yod, my counsel. My counsel, Ayin Zadi, is to have your eyes open and to take the counsel of Yahweh where suddenly your brain comes to life. You might have been in a coma. You might have been an idiot. You might have been unlearned. You might have been illiterate. But this language will bring back human potential the way it was designed from the beginning. But this word Zadi Tav Yod also means set ablaze, listening, match or kindle. Kindle a blaze of regarding Yahweh's counsel. Tav Kufav Mem, Takom, arise, establish, confirm, ratify, explain, erect, and build, to actually make it take place. To make what take place? All the hypothetical doctrines that we heard from the beginning that were supposedly nailed to the cross or for some phantom generation in the future are here now for us to look to, regard, and put them into place. Vekol chafatzi, and all my desire. That word chafatzi I mentioned a few minutes ago, het pe zadi yod, it's right here in the next to the last word of verse 10, Isaiah 46. The last word is aleph ayin shin hey, which means I will do it. So he says, my entire desire, everything I've ever wanted to do, I'm going to do it.
Nam Yahweh.
Nam Yahweh. It doesn't say Nam Yahweh here, but that's what Nam Yahweh, that's what Nun Aleph Mem Yod Vav He means. So here, verse 10, to bring this together as a sentence, tell the best story ever since the very beginning of time. This is the story by which the future will find liberty and freedom from out of the ancient past, the Paleo-Hebrew writings of Yahweh's own finger etched on stone. Whoever would find that will find the actuality of reality, though it's never been thought of before, never even considered. The declarations of my counsel arise standing, and every piece of my desire, according to my own whim and pleasure, I will do. Which is to say, for any clerk, cleric, clergy, priest, pastor, or professor to say, well, he doesn't do that anymore, or he wouldn't do that, that's not like him, my God doesn't do those kind of things, you got the wrong game. He's the Elohim of the Tsar, the Zadi Resh, this game of rocks. And they are hooked together, and they do work, and they will knock down that statue, though that's the Eben. Also the word Kifa is the word for rock. Simon Peter, the word Peter is Kifa, and it meant rock. It's where you get the Greek word for Petros, petrified, and it has to do with the word Kippur, or covering. He said, the big bad guys that are trying to rule this place are going to be so terrified they're going to run into their bunkers, hide in rocks in the ground, and say, fall on us, and hide them from the face of he who comes. He's about to show up, and whether it's this season, or whether it's a year from now, 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, he's going to show up. No doubt about it, because that's what the rocks say. That's what the Hebrew alphabetic letters say when you know how to read them. Verse 11, Kara ma mazarach. The word kara, kuf resh aleph, means it happened, or to be invited or summoned, or called to an assembly, but it also means to learn how to read Scripture. We talked on this other video with the picture with the monkey on front. Why the monkey? It's an ugly monkey. It's a scary monkey. The word kof literally means monkey. but it's also the back of the head. It also means that which will follow in the future, that which is about to happen, which is the word achar. So here, learn how to read, and Resh Aleph is to be able to see, to be put on exhibition. If it's Resh Aleph Hey, if it's Yod Resh Aleph means fear and have reverence. Al Tira, the root of that is the Resh Aleph. But what this is actually saying by Kuf Resh Aleph is in the future, this long reach, he's going to invite you and me to learn how to read this Hebrew, because he will put himself on exhibition. He will put the history of the world on exhibition. He will stage the entire game board, showing the big shots who do wickedness and evil, who hate him, who don't have a regard for him, and he's going to stage them like dominoes and knock them down. And the things that they do to harm us, he says, whoever touches you is jamming his finger into his own eye. If we are his kadoshi, his beloved, his betrothed. He says that these guys are going to make traps and snares, and he's going to push them into it, to fall into it themselves. If we are Yahuwah's kadoshim, his chafatzi, his delight, his desire, because we listen to what he said, because we listen to his voice, is what he has said numerous times. If we do that, if we be that, if we are his kadoshim, then anybody who tries to set a trap for us will fall into it themselves. The trap's going to blow up in their face. That's what he said all through Scripture. So I choose to believe that. Why? Because Kuf Resh Aleph. This is the long reach into the future, where I choose to see the revelation made evident, where he has told us his plan. So this word, that's Kuf Resh Aleph, Mem Mem Zadi, or Zayin Resh Het, is from the east. Well, that's a different word than Mikdam, but it's also meaning sunshine, bursting, spectacular, fantastic, outrageous. So is this a word that's literally translated from the east, or is it shiny and glittery, or does it mean, this is incredible, outrageous, whoa, he did this, he planned this is all his game, woo! That's the word. It's not translated that way, but that's the word. And then the next word, Ayin Yod Tet, it's translated vulture. But it really means, if we look at the Klein's Dictionary, to rush upon or shriek like a bird of prey. Owls don't shriek. They're quiet, stealthy. Vultures just kind of float around until something dies. They come down and chew on it. They're not shrieking as a bird of prey. But for me to yell, shouting like I just did, is this word Ayin Yod Tet. Screaming eagle. Do eagles scream? It's a picture of maybe a phantom jet flying in. What I'm saying is that I'm trying to show you the way to read this text. Bursting of an outrageous spectacle, once you learn how to read, that something comes flying in on, like a screaming eagle from the land, Ma'aretz, Mem Kuf Resh Het. Well, that means far away, highly unlikely, improbable, unbelievable. It's a place so remote in time or distance or even dimension. It's like, no way! That's what the word means. No way! From a land far away, that you can't even believe it or imagine it. Remember, this was written about 600 BC. So it's been 2,600, 2,700 years whenever Isaiah was around. Then it says man. Which man? It doesn't say Adam. It doesn't say Gabor. It doesn't say Anash. Those are other words that are translated man or human. But this is the word Aleph Yod Shin, Ish, man. Then here's the same word we saw before, Ayin Zadi Tav Vav, which means, the other one is Ayin Zadi Tav Yod, this is Ayin Zadi Tav Vav, which means he, the Vav is the masculine suffix, he will observe or kindle or be enthused of my counsel. A man who is enthused about my counsel. What are we talking about here? The meaning of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which is Yahuwah's plan, his aleph, his plan, his purpose, his intent, his staging of this entire world. And he's going to do it. If we can read it, we'll see how it's all scripted. This is his stuff. That's his counsel. Ayin Zadi, Tav. Man, what man? Doesn't mean it could be me or you necessarily, or Yeshua necessarily, or Israel necessarily. It could be anybody, male or female, of any race, of any period of time. because the word aleph is a prefix letter, means I, or I am, I will, and yod shin means is, to exist or be real. Aleph shin is the word fire. So it's this man who has this fire, the burning in the bosom, to pursue reality. Not the chess game, the game of rocks. Next word, af debarti. Well, that's the word aleph pei, af, which we said it had to do with the manner or the nose or the characterization to do something wheeled. Man, this guy's like skating on roller skates opposed to having to walk. It's just like, whew, this is the way it is. So I'm saying that if you look at the word ish, atztao, and f dabarti, this is all about seeing Yahweh's nose in his alphabet, in his words, and saying, I'm looking at my Father's face here. How do I bring a smile to his face? How do I regard this with the passion of my heart? Because it's the passion of his heart. How do I coincide echad, yichad, yod het dalet, singular, thin, just this. Stop listening to the news. Stop listening about the chess game and who's lying and who's staging this and who's about to trap him, whose move is it, and it's a different game. It's a different game, a game of peace. Af, aviana, aleph pei again. It's translated the word also, but it's aleph bet yod aleph nun hey. Bet yod aleph is entrance or import. It's an expression on his face. Aleph bet or aleph bet yod means my desire, my father, sprout, verter. It's like the month of Aviv, which is aleph bet yod bet, and bet bet is a gateway. Chet bet bet is chabab, which is your deepest inner heart where you hold that which you love. This, and then the last three letters, aleph nun hey, is the word to bring about or cause. It's a ship or a vessel or that which carries. So what we have here is a picture of like this series of letters which are like a train. They're each hooked together and they're vessels which bring in his desire. They're conducting something about, then here's this word, yod zadi resh tav yod. My imagination, my model, my formula, my manufacture of my composition of art, music, literary, scientific, and aleph pei again, purpose, inclination, impulse. And then the last word, aleph, ayin, sheen, nun, hey. It's a very interesting word. It's translated smoking. I'm going to be smoking. So, what is it that can pull this train of rocks?
Here we go.
Oh, baby. Now that's a locomotive.
That's a big boy.
This word, the last word in Isaiah 46:11 is locomotive, that which smokes. Yahuwah claims to be the locomotive who's going to pull this train of the meaning of these 22 letters. And he's going to make this happen. You can imagine this is solid engine. And it can make, well, here's a little cow pusher. If there's a little obstacle in front, if some little pawn gets in front of this train, he's going down. If some fortress or castle, it's pushing it out of the way. Some bishop, yeah, you're out of here. Military, king and queen. Oh, it's the other king and queen. That's what we need. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't stand in front of Yahuwah's locomotive. The point is, aleph, ayin, sheen, nun, hey is smoking like a locomotive because ayin, sheen is the word for doing it, production, cause, the affect which causes effect. So we can take this verse 11 and it reads something like this. Happening unexpectedly, summoned to learn the reading of Scripture. Well, that's Ivrit Hebrew. Brilliant, outrageous, fantastic. Screaming in like a bird of prey from a land far away in time, place, dimension, or perhaps culture, like maybe from America, on the other side of the world, 2,000, 3,000 years later. A man taking counsel, characterizing my words, featured by considering my desire. The pretext of our quarrel. What? Pretext of our quarrel? The reason for the quarrel of the last 4,000 years of world history is because Yahweh gave His truth, His words, His relationship to Israel, and Israel threw them away as if they were nothing and cared nothing and was taken over by their enemies. That was part of the stipulations of the covenant. And Yahweh is saying, okay, I'm going to hide my face, I'm going to turn away, I'm going to call in your enemies to ruin you until, Israel, you turn back to my Torah and seek my face. His face is in the letters. That's now. Featured. Now this is, remember, characterizing my words, taking counsel, a man who features this by considering my desire, which is the pretext of our quarrel. The cause and effect is what has become world history, like a train of cars, a fleet of vessels linked together. Well, that's a storyboard. If you want to put together a film or write a book, or it's like a cartoon, it's pieces that are hooked together, like a constellation where you hook in together the stars. Each picture staged to bring about the next thing. If you know the sequence of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, it's actually a staging of world history and the history of Israel and the story of proving Yeshua is the Messiah. All these things are in there. It's a fractal pattern, like DNA, of the entire universe. He will compose an imaginary literary work of art, characterizing the manner of which I do things, like a locomotive. Smoke it. So I'm sitting here reading Isaiah 46, 10 and 11, and all of a sudden I'm realizing it's talking about exactly this erectology study. Now other people may be doing the study too, but it's specifically describing what this study is, what these videos are that we're putting up here on Mountain Air 7. Is this a prophecy that this should be what Yahweh has planned? Why? Why would He do this? Oh, it goes back to verse 10. Because from the ancient past, the days of the Paleo, He inscribed, that's Ketub, that's writing for the future, the Achar, the Achrit, in order to have an epigraph of freedom and liberty. The Chet Resh Vav Tav, Chorot. Aleph Chet Resh Yod Tav is a derivative word. What I'm saying is if you analyze the meaning of letters, this is the Magid, the choice, sweet story. What happened today on the news? Doesn't matter. Who's telling you the truth? Doesn't matter. Are they going to win? Or is it the white side taking over from the black? Is it the Republicans from the Democrats? Is it the capitalists versus the socialists? Is it the... Doesn't matter. Very interesting. As I've pondered the Hebrew alphabet, like this train in the middle of the board, everything else just disappears. Sure, intentionally, proactively, obsessive, compulsive, fanatical, zealous, because Yahweh said that He was zealous about His stuff. What's His stuff? He wrote it in His words that are spelled by the 22 Hebrew letters. Look at Leviticus 23. Moedi, Mem, Vav, Ayin, Dalet, Yod. It means choice, best, treasure, adornment, ornamentation, bejeweled. You could read the word Moedi as my festival or festivals, though there's not a mem suffix there. And he starts off with Shabbat and then gives us Pesach, which is Passover, the week of unleavened bread, Chag HaMatzot, and then 50 days of counting, Shavuot. That's kind of basically clustered in the spring. And then 6 months later, the 7th month, you've got Yom Teruah. It's called trumpets, but it's actually yelling and shouting. And then 10 days later, Yom Kippur, which is covering or atonement. And then he's got 7 days of Sukkot, which is tabernacles, which is to be listening and thatched in like hand-to-hand for a week. And then there's Shemini Atzeret. And most people leave Shemini Atzeret off. And most people make Shavuot 2 festivals. But if Shavuot is one 50-day counting festival, then Shemini Atzeret is the last festival. the calendar's been messed up. We have inherited lies from our forefathers. Not to blame anybody, but this is the time of reconciling the truth. It's all according to a pattern, the Mishkan pattern. I just this morning put out on the internet, called Smiledon, 133-page writing.
I'll put a link to it on the video.
Put a link to it. Over the past 15 years, actually the hands picture I did was in 1977. But other than that, over the past 15 years or so, I've made a series of little graphics about the words. Turn them into stickers, and I've handed them out different places where if we send a charge, so we hand some out, and I've handed them out different conferences I've been to. And people say, well, what is this supposed to mean? They can't read it, they don't know what it is, it looks like some goofy little thing. And it's like, well, little kids like stickers. People used to stick, love bug stickers on their car back in the 60s when that thing came out. And, they wear shirts with stuff. It's like, what if we had stickers of Yahweh's words? So we'd have something to read, something to look at, something to think about. So I wrote up what all those stickers mean, all these little pictures, and linked them together, synchronized them to each of the 22 letters in a series so that you could pick this up and start reading Yahweh's story, his Magid, about what he intended from the very beginning, his Aleph plan. Bet, he built the world. Gimel, he sent this whole thing into action. Dalet, he's going to come here through the door to Hey, be a man, appear as a man, to show man the way back to the door of the house of the Father, and then he'd be put to the weapon, put into the crypt, and the rock sealed. That's the Tet. Yod, 3 days and 3 nights. Zadi, sprout after the grave. There's a Memnun, there's Kaf Lamed, Memnun, Samakai, and Pei, a group of 3, like 3 days and 3 nights. He went down to the depth of Mem to redo something, to change something. Why did he come and die? For him to come here and launch and go all the way down Aleph, it bottoms out at Mem. And Mem is this incubation chamber, this petri dish, this laver, this laboratory. And he changed something down at the depth of Mem. And then Nun sprouted back out, Samakai and Pei, Zadi burst from the grave, resurrected, and then 40 days later, Kuf ascended into the sky, and he said he's coming back, which is also a picture of Kuf, Resh Shin Tav. And the word Resh Shin Tav literally means betrothed, and to Kuf, like a sickle, to gather up and put into a net trapper's snare your betrothed and take them to the place he's prepared for you. The Aleph Bet is a prophecy. It can be read as a story, as if it was one word, as if it was a storyboard of the whole plan. And going back to the plan of Nebuchadnezzar's dream that Daniel interpreted, is it him coming back, or is it us coming back to his words to do his desire? In which case, the statue's fallen down, turning to dust, and that stone, that us doing our Father's desire, fulfilling our Father's heart, turns into a mountain. Hey Resh is the word har, which is mountain, but it's the Resh. So what's Resh? The Resh is the exalted status of Yeshua after the Kuf as the untouchable, supreme one who himself brought himself back from the dead. As he said, the power was given to him. So instead of the Vav man, there's 2 letters that are man. There's the Vav man, the 6th letter, then the Resh man, the 20th letter. The Vav man was put to the Zion weapon and put into the tomb, and he came back out bursting into this glorious Resh. That's what's in front of us. And yes, it's a story of him, but it's also a story of Israel. I believe that's a fractal story, so that this picture of Israel being handed the covenant, but being stupid and getting the curse, northern kingdom for 2,730 years that would have been over by 2010, and then we have this period of time where we can come back to this words, and according to what Yahweh said, he is our Elohim, and he's going to take out the bad guys, the evil ones, and bring us to this position of his Reshman, that we could put his great Shem, his name, on display for all the world to come to Jerusalem, which means the place of the inheritance, and teach him of his ways, exalting his name. That's what's in front of us. Whatever plans these guys have, I believe is going to fail. And I'm going to choose to believe that story. I can choose to believe their story of running the chessboard, or I can choose to believe the story that Yahweh is the locomotive that's going to pull the train of his rocks, and there's nothing they can do about it. Remember, it's the rock that took down a statue, and one little stone took down Goliath. These guys got nothing on our Elohim, and if we're in him, we have nothing to fear. The only thing we have to be afraid of is being afraid.
That's right.
We shouldn't be afraid because the most often repeated commandment is al tira, do not fear. There's something about being afraid which stirs up the adrenochrome. Look that up if you want to see who these guys are. When we're at peace, Yahweh said, I told you, in shalom, at peace, in quiet and rest is your strength. But you wouldn't have it. He says, no, we're going to run on fast horses. We got to have bigger cars. We have bunkers and houses to hide in and a stash of toilet paper. Whoa, hey. To stir that up, from what I understand, makes you vulnerable to all kinds of diseases, including viruses or 5G or whatever. Our thoughts about his language, I believe, is like this force field. Our shalom, trusting in him, betoch, trusting in him, is a force field. They can't touch us. They can't hurt us. Think about his stuff. Think about his words. Think about his Mashiach. Think about his Torah with a warm affection for him, and it'll turn into our incubation womb of safety. It's in his words. That's the best we have. It's all we need. Todah Yahweh.
That's all we need, brother. Good video. Thanks, man.
Shalom.